This is the brand new Suunto Vertical 2. This watch is for people who absolutely love nature, and it's got a few new tricks up its sleeve. So the Suunto Vertical has always been regarded as one of the most accurate GPS watches that you can buy. And again, that's really important for people who are doing like rock climbing, canyoning, and even for ultra running. If you're running through like thick forests and stuff, having top tier GPS tracking is something you definitely want to always keep yourself on track when you're out in the mountains. The vertical range is also about battery power, because you want that watch that can handle the battery demands of being out here in nature for could be days on end that you're doing. Now the first trick under the Vertical 2's sleeve is the flashlight. So we have now, I've added it as a shortcut, got a flashlight on this actual watch. So you can have it as 100% brightness, and just bear in mind I'm out in daylight at the moment. So this is for when you're, changing your head torch batteries, or you've run out of all your batteries and you need like an emergency kind of flashlight. It's better than nothing kind of scenario. Then you've got this, which is much more brighter than a lot of displays will use basically the screen as a flashlight. So for example, on the Suunto Race 2, you've got the flashlight feature, but it basically brightens up the screen to 100%, which is great if you're nipping to the toilet, you're at the camping site or something like that. But having a dedicated flash torch on your actual watch is something I've absolutely loved about the Garmin range. It was one of those things as a Suunto user that I did miss transitioning over to Suunto. To see them bring this to the Vertical is an absolute game changer. So that's the first thing about the Suunto Vertical 2, and I'll get into the other things in a second. But just to let you know, so you have the different brightness levels that you can change. So it goes from like up in 25% increments, and also you've got a red light on it, so you can go to red light to save your night vision, which again is really cool. We have an SOS mode, so you can put it into SOS mode if you're in need of emergency. You've got the breathing, so a slow breathing animation, and then we've got the alert as well, which is like flashing red, so really cool. This reminds me of something you use on like a bicycle, like as a rear light. So that's the first thing I think so cool about the Vertical 2. So moving on to number 2 things that I think is really cool about the Suunto Vertical 2 that's like a new trick up its sleeve is the improved heart rate sensor. And with the Suunto Vertical 1, so the first generation, some reviewers were a bit critical about the accuracy of the heart rate tracking. For me personally, I've tested the original Vertical with a chest strap, and I saw actually really good results. And I think a lot of people might have jumped on the bandwagon a little bit with the Suunto heart rate tracking, but that's not to say it definitely didn't need improvements. And testing the Race 2 has been a really cool insight into where Suunto are going in terms of heart rate accuracy. But I tested the Suunto Race 2 against the Garmin Forerunner 970. It come up on top in terms of accuracy. I tested it against the Coros Pace Pro, the Coros Nomad, the Amazfit T-Rex 3. If you want to see that video where I just deep dive into heart rate tracking on Suunto's new sensor, check out my other videos. But basically this new heart rate sensor is a massive improvement on heart rate accuracy, and actually might be outperforming anything else out on the market at the moment by a smidgen. And it's good to see Suunto potentially taking the lead. From the data I've seen so far, has been really good to see. Now the next thing about the Suunto Vertical 2 that I think I should bring your attention to, again, another critical statement of the original Vertical was the charging. If you look at the back here, we've got these new magnets, and basically the charging lead is much more stronger now. So you can dangle this watch from the charging lead, and you've got a really strong connection there. And it's also got some grip on the bottom as well. You place this down, it snaps on, and it's not coming off. I think a lot of people are going to love, just for that ease of mind. When you're tired doing these like massive hikes, the last thing you want to worry about is your watch aligned with the charger? So this is a massive upgrade for the Vertical 2. Now the one I've laid off on, because it might be a bit controversial, and it definitely is for me as well, is the new screen technology. So we have got an increased screen size. It's gone to 1.5 inches, and that's what she said. But basically this bigger screen, I was using it for an ultra yesterday, so if I'm hobbling about and look all frail and my voice sounds weird, I did the 13 Valleys 100-mile ultra marathon yesterday, and yeah, basically you've got this massive screen which is AMOLED. So that's the controversial part. We've switched from memory and pixel, and that older screen technology has been great because it's very power efficient. But a lot of people did miss those bright AMOLED screens. When you look at the Apple watches, the Suunto Race 2, and all of these watches that are coming out now, especially as iPhone users, I've just treated myself to the new iPhone 17 Pro. When you're used to using these beautiful, gorgeous displays and you go to a memory and pixel screen, I do understand why a lot of people do prefer it. Me personally, as an ultra runner, I just want ultimate battery life. So to see the AMOLED screen is something that I'll have to get used to with the Suunto Vertical. But you guys that want a really crisp, and again, for that maps and navigation, having that AMOLED display, if you look at the Vertical 1 versus the Vertical 2, it's just night and day difference. So the Vertical 2 with the AMOLED display is a massive improvement for those that just want like the best kind of viewing experience in terms of looking at your maps and navigating through the mountains like I am now, and like I was doing yesterday in the Lake District in the UK. So such a brutal race, and unfortunately I only got to 80 miles. I didn't finish. So if you want to see my DNF vlog, again, check out my channel in like a week or so. But yeah, using the maps on this watch was awesome because the 13 Valleys race was a completely like self-navigated course. Basically, there were no flags out on the course. You had to navigate through 100 miles of all of that you can see behind, and much higher as well. I'm currently next to the hotel, but yeah, mountains basically. You're going up and down, and having the Suunto Vertical 2 with the Amoled display was awesome. But you might be asking, how has that affected battery life? So getting onto battery life, basically you're going to get 65 hours in GPS mode. And to just let you know, so the ultra marathon that I did yesterday, I ran 80 miles and I was running for roughly about 26 hours. And I have 67% battery life on the Vertical 2. So yeah, 80 miles over a full day of running, and I'm at 67% charged. So that's really impressive. And I've been back to the hotel, I've slept with it on, I've had heart rate tracking on. These settings though, I did have it on low brightness mode, and I also turned off the always on display, which I think is a habit that I'll get into moving forward. If someone asks me what is your favorite watch, and I've tested a lot of watches from the Choruses, the Amazfit, to Suuntos, and even the Apple Watch, I really did fall in love with the Vertical ones. So this is just the natural progression for me. I will be switching to the Vertical 2 as like my daily driver. That AMOLED screen is something I'll get used to, and I think when I'm doing these ultra marathons, I'll be switching it into always on display off, but then just for like personal life and just living and training, I'll have always on display turned on, and that is like still going to get you an incredible amount of battery life. Now you might notice this beautiful pine green color. The pine green is meant to represent like being out in the forests, out in nature, and that's what the Vertical 2 again is designed for. That kind of person, whether you're into camping, skiing, whatever the kind of obscure but extreme sport is, this watch is really built to handle those environments. So you're getting this reinforced casing blended with steel, but you can also get a titanium version. So the steel Vertical 2 comes in at 84 grams and the titanium version comes in at 74 grams. This watch also comes with 100 meters of waterproofing. On the ultra marathon yesterday, I actually paired the pine green steel with the new band that Suunto brought out quite recently, which is a nylon strap, and I found that really comfortable. But yeah, the pine green strap is really nice, and what I do like about the Suunto straps is they lay completely flat. Now you've heard me talk a lot about the mapping and how I was using it for the ultra marathon yesterday, and this watch does come with 32 gigabytes of data. So what is the data, the storage for? Basically you can download all of the maps that you need for the regions that you're going to for the watch. It's all free to download these maps and download your routes, points of interest. You can really dive heavy into navigation with Suunto, and one thing you'll always hear me say is the compass action on Suunto is why I love using these in the mountains and out in the trails, because you get a really accurate sensor when you're twisting your body. And for me, I'm terrible at navigation and using an actual map and compass, so to have the assistance of the, you know, loading up a GPX route on the watch and having the assistance of Suunto's compass that's super accurate to be like, yep, I'm heading off in that direction, is really good. Especially like me yesterday, who hadn't slept for, I think I was getting on to 40 hours. So it's a long time to be awake for. It's really hard to stay like focused, and having the watch just be like, yep, turn left at the bottom of the street and next waypoint or checkpoint is in 600 meters. You get all that guidance with your navigation on the Vertical 2. I'm going to do a full in-depth navigational video for the Vertical 2 because this is what this watch is really designed for and where it really excels. So stay tuned for that. Just give me some time to film it, really put it through its paces. Again, you can't get more tougher than an 80-mile ultra marathon in the Lake District in the UK. But yeah, it'd be cool to kind of test this under heavily dense forests and see if this performs as well as what the Vertical 1 did. Be really cool to see. And if you have watched my Vertical 1 video where I have gone into navigation, Suunto have come a long way in making this a more premium experience. One really cool thing to see is basically if you've used Garmin, they've got the Climb Pro, and Suunto have now got Climb Guidance, which will show you the mountains up and down and your elevation. So if you're going up, you know, Scaffell Pike, for example, which is just down the street here, you'll see you're roughly 1,000 meters of elevation, and it'd be like a graph where you can see the climbs up and down, and you can see exactly where you are on that mountain, which is great for pacing and knowing how hard or easy you should take it until you get to the top of the mountain. On your phone, you can click your first point on the map, point A, and then click your second point on the map, point B, and Suunto just automatically calculates all of the turn-by-turn navigation along that trail for you. What I really like as well, that addition of like the heat maps, so it makes it really kind of quick and easy to populate your own kind of maps for yourselves. Send it over to the watch and off you go. Just touching on a few more navigational things that I really like. I love that the Suunto Vertical 2 has both like the weather, so you can see like the forecast of the actual weather in your location, but also inside the watch has a temperature sensor. So you can see the temperature sensor inside of the watch completely separate to the weather, so that you can see if you're doing like sauna or ice baths, or maybe you're camping at the top of a mountain and you want to know like right here, exactly where I am in this location, what is the temperature. You can take your watch off whilst you're camping, pop it on the side, and it's going to take a reading for you. I think that's an underrated feature, which is really cool. You've got the barometer, altimeter, and just lots of kind of features that we'll dive into in another video for really kind of heavy navigation and route planning when you're going out on expeditions. Now diving into other aspects of the watch, so you've got lots of kind of training peak central information just baked into the watch, so you can see things such as lactate threshold, your training stress balance, your chronic training load, all in the watch for you to basically track the graphs. It's a bit like Strava. You can see how hard you've been working in training, and you can also go into the recovery, which Suunto have improved since the original Vertical came out. It takes into consideration your sleep, your training stress balance, and then also we've got the feeling as well. Suunto takes all of this information, all of it, and it calculates how recovered you are. Now, one thing I will dive into, obviously I've been testing the Suunto Race 2 now for quite some time. It's a great watch, but you might be asking, if they're both Amoled now, then what's the difference? And I will go into like a full comparison video, but basically it comes down to mostly, obviously you're getting better battery life on the Suunto Vertical 2, but also you're getting buttons. So again, getting back to your nature lover, someone who's out in the mountains, you could be climbing up Everest with your gloves on, for example. Predominantly people who use gloves to stay warm and to stay alive. Basically on the Suunto Vertical, you're able to easily detect where your finger is. And I was using this yesterday because a rainstorm broke out of nowhere where the temperature dropped during the night, and basically it started to rain. You know, worst case scenario, the wind picked up, and I was struggling to keep my hands warm even with gloves on, but being able to easily press the buttons of the Vertical when I'm like sliding through my data screens or zooming in and out of the map, having 3 buttons there that are easily detectable and nice to interact with is an absolute game changer. On the Race 2, you're getting a scroll wheel, which is really cool with the maps. You can like dive in by scrolling the wheel. You can go through your menus as well, going up and down on the wheel. But I'll tell you what, as I said, my daily driver has been the Vertical 1, and I've absolutely loved that watch. So I actually like the buttons, but everyone's going to be different. You might be into buttons, or you might be into the scroll wheel. But don't forget, obviously as well, you have got the flashlight now on the Suunto Vertical 2, which isn't on the Race 2. So that's going to be a difference as well for me. Again, game changer for you guys out there. I will say, in terms of build quality and design, one thing about the Finnish company is that they make some awesome looking watches. That's what really attracted me to originally getting interested in Suunto in the first place. So in a nutshell, what is the Suunto Vertical 2? This is a watch for you hardcore adventurers, those who need the maximum amount of battery life and also accuracy as well. It's really cool to see Suunto bring the improvement to the heart rate tracking with the new heart rate sensor technology. That's going to be a game changer for a lot of people who wanted a bit more accuracy out of Suunto's heart rate sensors. And testing that on the Suunto Race 2, this could be one of the best sensors out there if you want like super wrist-based heart rate tracking. Also, you've got the flashlight on the watch as well, which is really cool and aligns again. This is for you guys and girls who are out there camping, exploring the trails in the dark. And having that backup of the flashlight is something that you might take for granted and you might think you'll never use, but everyone who switches over to a watch that has a flashlight has not looked back. It's got all these different modes on it, which I think is really cool. This watch is also designed for tracking a heavy training cycle. The Suunto application is very powerful to dive into all of that information that you need to kind of keep things at bay. And I like as well on Suunto seeing like the graphs of up and down. A lot of those, for example, premium features on Strava that you've got to pay for are just free and implemented with the Suunto experience. The weight, the comfort is all really good. You will just have to wait to see how I get on with the battery life. With it being AMOLED screen, you are getting a bigger display now, so the mapping experience was really cool to just dive into the maps and really understand where you are in relation to out here on the trail. trails, but the AMOLED screen does come at a cost of battery life. But how many of you are out there needing more than 65 hours of battery life? That might be some of you out there, and there are different battery modes that you can select, such as like a super power saving mode, but for best GPS tracking, it's going to be 65 hours and really accurate GPS tracks as well, so that's good to see. But if you have any questions about the Suunto Vertical 2, how I found it in my early days of testing it against the Race 2 and obviously other watches that I'm testing at the moment, or if there's something you really want to see in the video where I deep dive into everything about this watch, let me know down below, because I'm going to be doing everything down to like the GPS accuracy testing in different environments, looking at the heart rate tracker and using that new charger as well. I've got lots more to say about it, so stay tuned and peace out.